Hello guys, what is going on? Son Chelsea back here again for my rational perspective on England 0, Scotland 0. What was Gareth Southgate doing tonight? That is my big takeaway from England's game tonight. Really frustrating, really poor performance from England. A really good performance from Scotland. There's no denying that. I think in terms of across the pitch, from a Chelsea perspective, I think Billy Gilmour was once again outstanding. He was really impressive considering he didn't start the first game, considering it wasn't this his first start for the Scotland first team. Really impressive once again, showing the quality he has at such a young age. And we know that as a Chelsea fan, I know that. But he was impressive. I think as a unit, they were really impressive. But England, it was kind of on England to make something more of the game, and they just didn't have it. I was praising Southgate on Sunday for his tactical setup, for the intelligence of England. I'm not praising them tonight because I think there are many things that frustrated me, as we'll get into in tonight's review. Before we do, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads during the Euros. Also, hit that like button because it helps new people find the channel. I also wanted to say a massive thank you to the guys at Fanslide for supporting my England content. Fanslide is the world's first in-play fantasy football game. They use OptaStats, so you know it's live. The way you use it, you slide players in and out during the game. It's really fun to use, and it doesn't really disrupt your viewing experience. You know, I pick 3 players, I put the phone down, I watch the game, but then it's also cool to look at my phone during that period and see how my players are doing. And it's very tactical, and I really enjoy using it. So it's free to play, and not only on top of that, it's free to play, free to download, but they have prize money for every single game during the Euros that you can win, up to £10,000 in total this summer. So make sure you get down in the description box below, use my unique link to download Fanslide, and also follow me on Fanslide at Son of Chelsea so you can compete with my score as I'm playing during the Euros. But thank you Fanslide for supporting the channel this summer. But let's get into this game, this really frustrating game. So many questions. I don't know where to start. I can understand the continuation of playing players that played well against Croatia. It's hard for me. It's very easy in hindsight to say Sterling shouldn't have played because he didn't have a good game. It's very easy for me to say that both Phillips and Rice shouldn't have been the midfield too because they played well against Croatia. I was sat here on Sunday praising both of them, in particular Calvin Phillips, because he very much created the winner for Raheem Sterling. You know, I understand you want that continuation from game to game in a tournament, but I think what impressed me most about Southgate was he was showing to me on Sunday against Croatia, he's a coach that can select a team for a specific game and a specific opponent. I don't feel that's the case tonight. I look throughout that team, mainly I'm looking at central midfield and having 2 DMs in a game where England need to be a lot more progressive in their play. It felt as the game went on and eventually being forced to take off Phil Foden for Jack Grealish, and kind of a like-for-like switch where, for me, I was thinking at that point, I'm taking off a DM. I'm taking off one of Rice or Phillips who didn't have good games, and I'm bringing on Jack Grealish on top of that. Yeah, you may have to shift Mason Mount to a more central position. You may have to switch from what looked like for most of the game a 4-2-3-1, which was creating issues for England because it did feel at times like Phillips and Rice were very much separate from the attacking 3 in front of them, and that caused problems. So that's my first issue. I just think when you've got players like Jadon Sancho, who hasn't played a minute of football in these Euros, you have to question, why did Jadon Sancho go to the Euros? You know, I know we're only 2 games in, but for a player of that talent to not be utilised already, it's surprising to me. It really is. In a game where it was crying out for more invention, it was crying out for more creativity. Players like Sterling, players like Harry Kane were really struggling to impact the game, and it's why Harry Kane came off. I mean, that's a whole point in itself. He just doesn't look anywhere close to the player we know for Spurs, and especially at his best in the last World Cup. He's not providing that focal point. It's very difficult to get the ball to him. He's dropping so deep. He looks lethargic, and I wouldn't be too stunned if he doesn't start the 3rd game because you may need to rest him. It looked very disconnected tonight from England, which was really frustrating. I think creatively Mason Mount, and this feels very Chelsea, and I know people will say I'm just doing it because of bias. I do think Mason Mount, if I was to pick out any England player that really impressed me, or at least was trying to make things happen, more so in the first half, but Mount did have a good shot saved by Marshall in the second half. I think Sterling, I was criticising him in the first game, but he scored the winner, so you can't really criticise him that much. But I think overall, his general performance has been really poor. He really isn't impacted in the game, and he's very much now continuing the form we saw at Man City. As I've already said, Harry Kane dropping too deep, being isolated from the play. He doesn't look impactful, and we need him to be our talisman, our world-class player. Really, you could argue our one world-class player in the starting 11. He isn't impacting the game so far, and that is a real concern, because we really need to get him going in the latter stages of this tournament if we do make it far. Phil Foden, I think, was taken off too soon. I know you could say any of those attacking players could have come off, but it just, once again, the caution of Southgate really frustrates me. Rashford coming on instead of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who, with a Scotland defence that was sitting that deep, when you have Reece James on the pitch, who can cross balls into the box, and I think that Reece's crosses, the one he put in, which I think Kane was offside for, was a really good one and shows the quality of Reece James when he has the ball at his feet in that area. Calvert-Lewin, I remember in certain internationals, him and Reece James really linked up well, and you've got an aerial threat that you could go towards. That's what excited me about having Calvert-Lewin on the bench to bring on in these types of situations. But instead, he goes for a faster forward who can sometimes play off the left, that just didn't work for the game and didn't impact the game in any way. In fact, despite my love for Jack Grealish, didn't impact the game too, but I was quite bemused at how far left Jack Grealish was. He was like hugging the touchline. He wasn't coming in field, and maybe that was down to Scotland's good shape and really constricting the space for England tonight. But that was a concern for me as well. And I just think as well, I look across the pitch, and once again, it's going to come down to, I'm sure for you guys who are not Chelsea fans saying Chelsea bias, but I'm not quite sure how Ben Chilwell is like the third choice left back for England. Is Southgate going to play 3 group games of 3 different left backs? I mean, that doesn't look that great. It doesn't show he really has a plan, but it shows you the quality of squad he has. But I don't think Luke Shaw was that impressive for me tonight. He got into some good positions, but his delivery in the final third was pretty poor, like a lot of the England squad. So it was a really frustrating evening. I think the critics of Southgate will feel very justified. The doubt was over Southgate going into this tournament. I felt we're a little bit overboard, and I felt even more so when we won the first game. I still think that was a good win against Croatia. I don't think this performance writes off that performance, as some people I'm sure would like to make it. I just think the approach tonight was just really disappointing for me, and I'd like to see a much more expressive England side. I don't want a cavalier, stupid England side to go out there and have no shape at all and just throw every single attacker. I think that's what some England fans naively want. It's just, I think there needs to be a balance of risks depending on the opponent you're facing, and I think the opponent we were facing tonight was always going to sit a lot deeper, try and hit us on the counter, try and sit in a low block like a 5 at times, and I felt that with the amount of possession England had, and we're just so passive, I think the likes of Jack Grealish could have started this game instead of, say, Phil Foden, who has exciting moments, but I think I would have preferred to keep Mason Mount in the team. I just Sterling staying on the pitch for that long Sterling staying on the pitch for the whole game was a massive shock for me, because he's been really poor. So I think that there's a lot of lessons to learn here. My concern going into the knockout stage, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, if England make it through to the knockout stage, which they likely will with 4 points after 2 games, given you have to try and eliminate yourself from this tournament at the moment with the third place thing. If it is, say, against a Germany or a France, then I think that actually benefits England a lot more, because I think England will be forced to sit a lot deeper. But if England come up against a side once again who sit deeper, and Czech Republic will probably do this on Tuesday, do we have the answers to break them down? That's the key thing, and that's where Southgate, I think, needs to take a bit more risk and look at his personnel and think, can I utilise the Jadon Sancho? Can I utilise a Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Can I leave out one of my defensive midfielders in Phillips or Declan Rice, and maybe just go for one of them, go for a 4-3-3 potentially, and try and go for the game a bit more? I think those are questions that Southgate has to answer. They're difficult questions to answer, but I think he needs to answer them for the final game. England are in a good position. Let's get some perspective. I'm frustrated we're not beating Scotland, because it's always a bragging rights thing, of course, and it's a derby and you want to win this game, and I think England, with the quality we have, should be putting away Scotland. Scotland played well, and they've got a good chance to potentially get through to the last 16 with a big performance against Croatia. But I just want to see a better performance against Czech Republic, because if we don't, England, and I think even now you're going to see a lot of critics of Gareth Southgate, and those will continue unless we have some really good performances in the next game and hopefully getting through to the knockout stages. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this review. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.